We are recording.
Nice. Okay, how is everybody? Jim, you've got new members in Colab, you've got old members. How is Colab doing these days?
It's good, doing well. I mean, we're the bounty system fault may have some effect on the enthusiasm. There's a lot of activities going on in Rolang and in the booting up of the social ledger. We've got RChain Africa and RChain Croatia on the map, along with the Colab and the RChain Cooperative. And we started with the new social ledger, and we're just starting to flesh it out. I'm thankful for people's help in facilitating that process.
So for whose help? Who's been working on that?
Valentine has been working on it. Adi.
Hi, Valentine. You're on the call.
Leah's getting involved this week, along with the, I guess, the members of the former marketing team. There's engagement between Digital Life and RChain Europe, and they are most likely coming on board as well. And certainly Jonathan has been a proponent of the social ledger, which hopefully will mean that RChain Asia comes on as well.
Cool. So does that mean migrating away from Discord into Mattermost, or are we going to use social ledger in parallel?
Yeah, the Discord is still obviously going to be the official place for the co-op, but the work teams will be moving over. Now, they may have a presence in Discord in the channel, but they may have, there'll be a corresponding channel in Mattermost that they can get through a pinned item, which will have the social objects that the team uses organized and embody the structure of the organization.
Okay. So on the agenda, I see only 2 items for today. We've got a January member meeting, which we should talk about, and governance reboot. Can we handle the governance reboot first?
Sure.
What's in that?
Well, I guess in the Discord, really Jonathan initiated the formation of a governance working group, which the former governance working group kind of collapsed. And Multineering, what's his name? I forget his name. Multineering, Discord name, has stepped up to the plate, and I've been working with him on some initial materials for the working group. I would say, people interested in being part of the governance working group or following it, that they participate in the governance channel in Discord. I guess Multineering is trying to get his presentation, so to speak, in shape before he shares it, but it should be shared soon. I will encourage him to share soon, and we also plan to open a Google document where we can collaboratively work on it. And it'll have a regular meeting twice a month. We'll operate mostly in an advisory capability as opposed to having any specific authority in the co-op. But I see this as filling an important void in the community, which can get
in terms of governance.
Yeah. And of course, I'm hoping that we choose to use the social ledger to aid governance. But I want to make it successful first in the collab and demonstrate its value. There's a new portal interface which lets us organize all our services in a coherent manner and build on the networks of people through their interest profiles and directing people to activities in the co-op that use their skills and interests.
When do you think that'll be visible in the software?
Well, you can see a demo of digital using it today. I'm going to mute you, Valentine.
Ned, Tyler, Chidindu, in terms of goings on within the co-op, have you heard anything or see any direction that we're going in? We have a new working group forming, as Jim said. The governance working group.
Yeah, I'm not involved in that at all. We're still working on mainnet features. We've had some issues getting certain technical people we need to come to meetings, so we've been a little delayed there. But we're pushing forward, and Deanna and I are committed to getting something out. Maybe realistically it would be Monday or Tuesday, but we're looking good, and we're not a blocker at this point for the current sprint that's taking place, so that's good. Testnet, they believe they have a solution in place to fix that consensus bug with the unmatching of the non-matching of the com events, so that's good. They were can't remember who it was, Artur or Luca, but one of the devs was doing a pull request like at about 7 a.m. this morning. So hopefully, then we got to get a bunch of eyes on people testing that. So hopefully we're going to have testnet back up and running in the, sometime pretty soon. Okay, so that's mainnet, that's testnet. Joshi and I have had two really great discussions. I've posted the videos in the collab rolling.js on storage. I would recommend that people listen to those too. Unfortunately, the first one, the first half hour got cut off, but I think you'll be able to pick it up. And then coming out of that, we had a whole bunch of questions, and then we sat down again. What did I say? Wednesday. I guess we sat down again Monday, and I posted part 2 where we drilled in and uncovered answers to questions. Although Jim has said this morning, he told me that he's actually getting different results depending on what version of our node he's running. But I want to just kind of put that to the side until we have a test net back up and running. We could test it again, but it still, I think, shows some really cool things about the tuple space. And Jim, help me out here. What's that function called? Listen to name on channel or something?
Yeah. You know, we've had some concerns about redundancy in the tuple space.
Right.
The potential of its growing, and we're watching that carefully.
Okay. So yeah. So that call, which the devs had always said was just a temporary wrapper. So Josh and I actually did. So the problem is, if you're looking for a specific channel name and you're calling that function, the latest block, you're not going to get a response. You pass it a depth, right? So how many blocks you want to go back to look for something coming on that channel, and it's hey Dave, thank you, Dave. And it's non-deterministic. You don't know how far back to go because if you hadn't sent something on that channel for a million blocks, you don't know what to do, right? So, but what we discovered was every block has the exact same tuple space in it. So as long as so it's actually just, it's pretty trivial to write some code using even JavaScript and the RChain API and looking up your channel and pulling out all the information you need in the current block. Anyway, I invite everybody to watch those two videos.
Can we paste the link to those? Jim, do you know what they are?
It's in the collab in the RChain channel.
Yes, that's where they are.
Those links.
And yeah, I won't be hurt if you do it at triple speed or something, but
yeah, I watched
We'll try not to let that get reported back to you, Ned.
Yeah, I watched it this morning, and I think we need to put in a change request rather than giving the number of blocks. Maybe give the maximum number of blocks and have it go back until it finds it.
I think that's really great. On the other hand, Jim, I think we don't have to, since the current block always has the same tuple space. So my point is, it's okay. Let me put it this way: if we had all the time in the world, I think we could add a whole bunch of features. I agree with you. Considering where we are now, I don't think it's critical to get that working for mainnet.
Well, the question is, if you're reading a channel that was written to in block 2, and this is block 1,000,000. To read that channel, it's got to go back to block 2.
No, that's what we proved. It will be in block 1,000,000. The entire tuple space gets propagated in every block. Of course, that leads to other issues, but that's what we proved.
Yeah, no.
Look at the video. That's what we proved.
I know, and I ran it on a different version of Arnode this morning, and it didn't happen. Okay, I had blocks. If I deployed Hello World and proposed it, it was only like a 500 character block. Well, not 500 character. No, it was.
I think 6K is the minimum.
Some investigation, but I was not getting the entire tuple space. I compared the tuple space with the block size.
Okay.
The block was much smaller.
All right, can we take this offline and maybe
Yep.
Jim, you, me, and Joshy can investigate more?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is great, right? This is what we need to determine, which leads to other things like I am concerned as the tuple space fills up. And I think Dan and Joshy ran some performance tests where he did some graphs where, like, I guess Dan wrote this shuffle, card deck shuffle, and he ran a test that it was like after 40 shuffles, the performance of the whole blockchain like slows down. So we definitely need some investigation. So I would put it out there to the community members, the technical folks, that, you know, we need people running these kind of little tests, you know, and
So Ned, are you saying that the tuple space is reproduced by every validator in the shard?
Yes.
So I have my stupid little database and everybody has to reproduce that?
In the same shard, I believe so. Now, Joshi wants to do a 2-node test, which I think is a great idea, and we did not do that. So that would be a great test to add. Yeah, so like if you watch the videos, you can see clearly the test, and Joshi has the rolling code, and it would be great to do that on a 2-node shard.
Yeah.
Because I can't give a 100% definitive answer yet.
Okay. So it says, here's a link to my conversation with Josh on storage. Is that the video?
Yes, part 1 and part 2.
Okay, thanks. Okay, should we go to annual meeting, January member meeting? What do we have to discuss before going there? Okay, if there's nothing else to discuss before going there, let's go there now. Let's see, trying to paste this link, just give me 1 second. At this point in time, Jim, in terms of an annual or a members meeting quarterly, that's the plan of record. Are we ready to do that, or is there still too much chaos going on within the cooperative?
That's a good question, and we may want to pose that question to the new governance working group. I put that on the agenda because I guess several weeks ago it was raised in the debrief that we would do a January meeting, and Greg thought that was a good idea. And so I was just wondering if we're going to do it or not, and what are the items of, what items of business would we have? And if we don't have any items of business that we would want to put on it, then I guess we wouldn't have the meeting.
Well, I think there'll be jillions of items of business, and we'd have to figure out a way of culling items of business. We have to figure out whether we want to rely on the system that was used before that heavily involved the board of directors, or whether we want to define a new or better system. I think your idea of going to the governance working group is pretty good. Tyler, do you have some opinions about that? You usually follow these kinds of issues.
Thanks for asking, Alan. Off the top of my head, no, I haven't been as involved. I actually did not know there was an upcoming members meeting. I haven't been following as closely. I was spending a fair amount of my time this past week looking into the proposed audit committee and one of the other things that Barry had posted. So I don't have a ton of information on the subject.
Okay. How's the audit? I mean, this isn't directly relevant, but how's the audit committee coming, and might that affect future member meetings?
That's a good question. The direct answer is I'm not entirely sure. Barry had posted the charter for what that would look like and what some of the requirements would be, and I pinged both him and two of the other board members with interest on joining, just given the fact that I don't work for the co-op in any capacity, but I do have experience in that background. So they said they're going to compile a list of candidates and try to select the most qualified people for it. So I don't know as of right now, but I hope to get some more insight in the near future.
In terms, I have a sort of general question. It seems from the way this meeting has been going and other meetings that there's general agreement about working on mainnet. There doesn't seem to be terribly much, not so much dissension, but there seems to be less interest in other things compared to what used to be. Does anybody have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, right? I mean, all contracts and work and anything not related to mainnet was cut because as of now, we'll barely have enough money to get to mainnet. So there's no money for anything else from the co-op's perspective. And so all resources have been either cut or redirected, like myself, to be working only on mainnet.
Yeah, I know that Dan Connolly said that that's what he's doing.
So I'm not sure. So I think this has been pretty much public knowledge for at least since the member meeting in Seattle, right? I mean, so it's like 3 weeks now. So.
Yeah.
And I really want to stress that without additional funding, right? I mean, right, the funds basically run out right when we.
Jim, Ned, let me ask you a question. I've spoken about this a little bit with Jim and a little bit with Dan Connolly. I had a conversation with David Otto, and what I'm about to say meets legal requirements. There's not a legal issue. One thing that could be done is the cooperative could issue what are called notes receivable, which are similar to stock options or anything, notes payable. So basically, those would be payment in ROC at some time in the future, like notes payable in June or next December or something like that. So the reason I mentioned stock options is that somewhat similar to stock options or locked up stock or whatever. There are some analogies, certainly in terms of the legal situation. That's an important analogy. Do you think that would be a good idea to make commitments against future ROC? I guess there are two parts of that question. One is, would that incentivize people to work for the cooperative where we need workers? And two, is that mortgaging our future, so to speak?
Yeah, so I think that is a question for the board. That's one. Two, I don't know how IOB 5 restricts anything like that. So that's another question, I guess, for the board to determine. And for me, so I think those two items right there have to go to the board. Whether
that's a good non-answer, Ned.
Well, I mean, I'm a pretty transparent guy. I mean, my personal take is with the current board, I wouldn't be mortgaging our future financially at this point. Until we had management in place, I mean, I would not vote to open up, start giving out IOUs for work when we can't even manage. We have shown that we can't manage that kind of work at any level from the co-op. And it was an abuse system. I'm not saying anybody here abused it. I'm just saying overall, we were paying a tremendous amount of money every month for work that may or may not have been valuable. So I think the first thing is to get our house in order and how we're going to actually manage that before we start giving out IOUs. I mean, that's my personal take, but I still think no matter what my personal take is, the board's got to determine, does it fit with IOB 5, and is it something that they would be willing to do?
Yeah.
Other opinions, Jim?
Well, I think that the value creation is certainly an issue, and I think we would have to show that there was value creation, the work people did. But I think we can reward people, and whether you call it an IOU or you call it lock stake, you give people stake. We're not flooding the market with anything. We're capitalizing on a resource that we own and control. Some people would consider that to be flooding the market, but it should only be a small percentage of the stake that's out there in any case.
I think Ned brings up a good point in the sense that there has been some concern around the management ability to sort of prioritize and deprioritize where these potential IOUs. And so I think there's some concern there on the supply side. There's the other concern that just given all of the potential risk that they would even be accepted for people wanting to market. Obviously, that's up to the individual's decision. So it's not necessarily a bad idea, but I think Ned's right in that there is a house getting in order step that is a far higher priority.
Yeah, on the one hand, on the other side, it's irresponsible for us to not use a resource that we have available.
I can live with that.
Fair enough.
I mean, my point is, guys, we need to focus on getting to mainnet, right? If we can't get to mainnet, and so I know all of us who are employees of the co-op, we're focused on mainnet. All this is a moot point if we can't get to mainnet.
So Ned, it would be the ability to issue IOUs or restricted rock or something like that, would that help in what you're doing? You'd mentioned difficulty in getting developers to get to meetings. I'm not sure whether that's simple conflict. Sorry, simple scheduling conflict or...
No, I'm sorry. It wasn't developers I was talking about.
Okay. Okay. So, but let me just ask that question. Would some incentivization like that help you in your work, help get to mainnet in general?
So for me personally, I don't think I would have time to manage that. I'm already extremely sleep deprived, right? So I hope everybody knows most of our core developers are over in Poland, or they're not here on the West Coast. So I've been doing really early meetings, and I go pretty much throughout the day. And like for me to manage something like that seems like it would be, I wouldn't have the time. I'm not sure who in the co-op right now would. And so I think without sorry for you decentralized guys, but without a strong centralized management point, I kind of personally, and I'm happy to be wrong, but I kind of just see more chaos.
Ouch.
I think Jonathan, if I could speak for Jonathan Kochmir, he said, at this point in the startup, being so open and decentralized, not decentralized, being so open is difficult. And I agree. It's like, let's get this platform nailed down. Let's get an excellent operating environment. Let's get all this working. And then, as we all know, like governance, right? How we're going to do things. It's messy. It takes time, and it's not fast, right? It has to be talked and vetted and tried. And so I kind of think, there'll be time for that once we're fully up and the platform is stable. So, that's kind of my worldview. Nobody else has a comment?
I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Thank you. Phil?
I think Phil was maybe.
Hey there.
Yeah, hi Phil.
Yeah, I had dinner. Sorry, I was away from keyboard.
Welcome back.
Yeah, what was the current topic? Sorry, I was distracted.
So let me give you a 2-sentence summary. We talked about the possibility of some sort of IOU in ROC payable in 6 months or a year or something like that. And would that help the current situation? And Ned and Tyler both think that that would just cause more confusion. They don't have time to manage what they're doing right now. And what we need is to just get our house in order, so to speak.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. On the other hand, I'm not. Ned? What's your opinion about the current timeline? When will a Mercury bill will be released? From your standpoint.
Well, I mean, we're all shooting for the end of Q1, right? So March 30th, 11:59 p.m. Right? I mean, that's what we're shooting for, and so. Part of this exercise of going and coming up with a definitive feature list for mainnet, which I'm not sure if you heard, where Deanna and I are really driving to have done by early next week. And then we could timeline it out, but that, and so then we have to see what features we could cut. I will say I am optimistic, right? While there are some big things that still need to be discussed, like storage and cost, there's a tremendous amount of code, right, that's been written and is operational, and so I remain really optimistic about hitting mainnet.
Okay, so here's my point of view. I'm actually testing all those R nodes releases, right? From the release date on, and my point of view is, especially given that I have some experience how long it takes for a blockchain protocol to harden, that it will take, I guess, at least half a year, if not 9 months more to get to a stable protocol blockchain.
So is that stable, Phil? Is that stable where we could do the hardening testing, or is that including the hardening testing?
That's including the hardening testing. But
okay.
In my opinion, blockchains are mission critical infrastructures, and you shouldn't release a platform without being sure that it's kind of stable. Otherwise, you kind of build. Otherwise, you kind of build on very not solid foundation.
Yeah, actually, I agree with that in every software development effort. But yeah, I totally agree.
I mean, especially given that blockchains are kind of mission critical, and there's a lot of money involved, etc. So it might be possible that we can hit Q1 for being kind of feature complete, but I don't think that it's possible to have a hardened protocol or blockchain in Q1.
So your idea is that mainnet would launch, but not suggest that people put a lot of high value transactions on it?
It's not my idea, but I'm more afraid that this will happen. I'd rather would see a pushback of the release date than a rolling release or whatsoever, or a soft
So
release.
maybe there should be a mainnet feature complete release candidate release or something like that.
I don't know how you want to call it. I don't think that end of Q1 there will be a blockchain that is ready to put out into the wild.
Yeah.
And going back to your question, of course, it then depends whether we have enough funding for ongoing hardening, development, etc. If that's from the current standpoint, it's just enough to get to Q1, then for sure, from my standpoint, it will not be enough to get us to a hardened protocol.
So Phil, given that you're kind of, I want to expand the scope of the discussion, because there's some talk that even Ethereum, because of price drops and so on, the number of miners on Ethereum is not necessarily as profitable as it was, and may be not profitable at all. Is this something that may affect the community generally, affect blockchain generally?
Effect in which way? I mean,
if there's not validators, not miners, if there's not an economic proposition because the price of cryptocurrencies in general drops too low, could that?
I mean,
could that have a
kind
global
of.
effect?
It kind of is. Yeah, there might be the concern of. On the other hand, there's just a market dynamic there. So, a lot of some miners will just switch off their mining rigs, and it's pretty much a little bit unknown when it comes to proof of work, and there's a dependency on the price, obviously, and the security kind of also depends on the price. And I wouldn't say that's something I can say that's for sure what's currently happening. I don't know.
I don't know if anybody's done this exercise. I ran a simulation for the last, what I did, I did 3 years or 5 years, and I just fixed a date. I think I did March 1st, and I did the top 100 on CoinMarketCap.
Yeah.
And because my idea was throw $100 at every one of the top 100 and see where you come out. But one thing that was really clear was that, you know, even a year ago and 2 years ago, there were projects in the top 25 that I would say most of us haven't even heard of. So, you know, today the whole friggin' market is tanking. Actually, funny, Rock is actually not tanking as much, but everything is tanking. So what's going to happen? You know, I think that's part of the question, Alan, right? It's like,
yeah. There's a larger environment in which we're embedded.
Right. And I will say, like you brought up validators, and I don't really know much about like Ethereum and why, because they're proof of work still, but this is a threat to our decentralized model if we can't get, and I think the number keeps whittling down. And I think now Greg is looking at what, 30 or 35 certain types of validators. And, you know, what happens if we want to go to mainnet and we don't have validators?
That's
Right.
another reason why I think for devs and for testers and for trainers, getting helping that we should allocate staked rock by spending some of our staked rocks. We're ensuring a certain amount of staking that is done on the network when we launch.
So, so Jim, would that be co-op owned validators?
Well, you know, Tampa Bay, it will be running the validators, and people would be able, who have earned staked rock, would be able to stake it with the Tampa Bay.
Or anybody who has rock.
Anybody who has rock, right? But if they have staked rock, they can't spend it on the market. It's locked. They have to stake it.
I see.
So you're saying that staked rock could be used for staking. That rock for notes payable could be used for staking.
That's all it could be used for.
Okay, so that would take an amendment, right, to
Yes.
something. And then, but I wouldn't call it an IOU. It's basically allowing somebody, instead of staking their rock in a wallet that can't be touched, allowing them to transfer, and maybe a one-time only transfer to an approved staking pool. And they have to, and whatever staking period was in their initial agreement, so I don't know, was it 18 months, 24 months, whatever it was, has to be locked up in that pool for that same period of time.
Correct.
I mean, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Now,
so
the question is, how many people are in that situation?
Well, I mean, we've had up to 60 people in the node testing. I think quite a number of them would be interested if they were actually compensated in staked rock for their actual participation in testing. Like I said, you know, this pool would be used to fund developers, testers, and trainers, or people who help companies who are developing apps.
I thought you were talking about people who already had staked rock.
I think Jim is using staked rock for this type of locked up rock that's not payable until some particular date.
Yeah, I was combining both things of paying people from our treasury in staked rock for dev, testing, and training. But there's also the idea of getting just regular rock owners to basically lock their rock for staking. I'm not sure what their incentive would be. I mean, they can always do that at any time.
So I mean, I would support, and this is actually, I had talked to some folks at Reflective, because I didn't really, I had a different view on how the whole validator sale should have been. But if people can go to the open market and buy rock, and we have levels, like if you stake 1 million rock, you'll get the regular validator percentage, whatever that is now, and a little bit of an extra as on your transaction fees. And you could have, you know, 3 different levels. You know, if you stake, you know, 250,000 to 1 million rock, you know, you get whatever the transaction fee percentage is now plus, you know, 1%, and then 1 million to 5, you know, whatever. And then maybe you have 3, and then you have a rule that you're entitled to that extra, it's like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And as long as you keep your stake, you're entitled to that extra increase of percentage. But at any point in the future, if you remove your stake, you lose that extra percentage and you lose it basically for the rest of time. So it's a way to incentivize people to go to the open market, to buy rock and to stake. And the more they stake, they'll get a little bit extra percentages. And you know, the commitment is you'll keep getting those little extra percentages on the transaction fees, and say everything has to be locked up by, you know, January 30th. You know,
Ned, is that what they are doing, or is that what you think they should be doing?
it is definitely not what they're doing, but that's how I would have designed the validator program. And
Yeah.
I've seen variations on this from other blockchains, and they seem to have had no problem getting people to stake.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think that that is the right approach for designing a sort of a well-constructed, well-thought-out validator program. Otherwise, obviously the current approach is not working. And so considering the fact that aside from having, you know, code that's actually right, this is a huge part of the equation that needs to be figured out. And I think it should be prioritized with whether it's the members or other, you know, co-op board, you know, some of the board. It needs to be prioritized, and it needs to be done quite quickly here because we're going to start running into time constraints.
Yeah, and that's why I love what, and I wish I had more time to pay attention what the Tampa Bay Shard is doing, because unlike other projects, when we stake, we have to spin up hardware, and people who are going to want to buy rock do not have the wherewithal or understanding, you know, by and large, to spin up servers. So I think what the Tampa Bay Shard is doing, creating this pool, I think is excellent. And and I'd like to see that effort really progress and start spinning up some hardware and start getting some kind of, you know, bylaws in place.
And, you know, we're hoping that this can be replicated because,
right
now, rather than the co-op running these pools, they can be run by other organizations. And, you know, you stake with the organization you trust, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it even takes some of the liability away from the co-op.
Absolutely.
But these pools have to exist for people to use them.
Ned, is that the solution, or is there more about staking that you think needs to be done, you and Tyler think need to be done quickly in our approach to staking?
I mean, it's a start. I mean, we have to figure out, you know, so this is the deal, right? We've got to figure out transaction fees and the exact amount that somebody's going to make. Right?
Is somebody working that problem? Is that happening?
Well, there's a published document, but, you know, I've got to get my slide rule out and kind of figure out.
Then the published document, I think Mrinal had a big part in that, and I'm not sure whether he's still available.
I don't think that the co-op would use him, but I'm not sure. I mean, he had it pretty laid out, but I'm not sure his calculations are correct anymore. Because remember,
so I mean, is somebody reviewing that? Does that need to be reviewed? Is that something that needs to be raised as an issue?
I don't know. You know, I guess Greg and maybe Bill a little bit and Kenny are driving the validator initiative at this point, which is, so I don't know, but it is definitely something that needs to also be worked on.
Part of my concern, Ned, is that it appears, and this is more speculation, but it appears that there has been less thought as to building out a robust plan or validator model, and more focused around just trying to getting people to commit. But I think it's a chicken and egg. You need the first part of what does this actually look like prior to going out and doing just a lot of, you know, biz dev and sales, because at the end of the day, if you don't know what you're selling, you're not going to do a very good job and get people to want to jump on board. And so what it has appeared to me is that, Greg just keeps saying will be, a robust validator network. What does that look like? And I don't know if that has been at least, thrown up on a whiteboard yet and said, this is what we think we need, and let's try to solve for this. Do you know by chance if I'm incorrect with that hypothesis?
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. How do I go out, especially to a savvy business person, and say, we want you to buy, $1 million worth of rock and become a validator. And the first thing they're going to say to me is, okay, how much am I going to make? And, so.
Yeah, that's a real problem.
I mean,
and the other thing we can say is to the businessman is why don't you guys run a validator pool? Maybe you do Bitcoin mining. Maybe you do some other things. Maybe you have extra hardware, and use other people's money. Have a validator pool and split the income with the.
Yeah, but if I don't know how much money I'm going to make I was looking at server centers that would let me spin up bare metal, as opposed to doing like a VPS shared. And, they're not that expensive, but I have to look at my costs, right? So if I don't know how much money I'm making every month on transaction fees, how do I know how much hardware I could afford to put into one of these validator pools? So anyway.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. And there is another issue, or it is kind of hard to compare to other blockchain projects, is our sharding solution is mainly the sidechain mechanism. And that comes with the tricky situation that we can give an interest on the root shard, but it's quite hard to give the same interest on side chains. And this twists everything a little bit around, because usually what validators and networks are, they're long, or at least in proof of stake networks, they are long-term investors. But what we are seeking or trying to find here in our situation are more or less institutions that want to offer services that are very similar to cloud services. And actually that's what it is, because if you're running a validator in a high performance shard, then you're more or less making the money out of either the transaction fees, but that's really unknown, or you get an edge within providing the compute infrastructure. And that's very different as in other blockchain projects, where there's just, okay, we want to attract long-term investors because they get a return of investment on the underlying staking token, and that kind of leverages their kind of a bet on the future price on the underlying token.
Yeah. Absolutely, Phil. Couldn't agree with you more. And just to be clear, sharding is not in mainnet.
Yeah,
but I do
exactly.
Agree.
That is a very important point. And so why do we actually focus on trying to figure out what the transaction volume is, instead of going more towards, okay, then it is more focused on long-term investors, because compared to the interest rate, the return on the income from transaction fees is neglectable.
Yeah, I agree. We have our other meeting, sorry.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk this more. So maybe Jim, maybe wrapped around the pooling of the Tampa Bay shard, we could continue some of these discussions.
Yeah, Steve Henley is sort of leading that. I'm not sure. I guess you guys in Tampa meet regularly. It might be better to get somebody down there who's more on top of it involved as well.
See you guys in the meeting.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Great convo.
Yeah, thanks. That's
Bye.
over.